On April 10, 1912, the world's largest and most luxurious ship, the RMS Titanic, was ready to set sail on its maiden voyage. The atmosphere at the Southampton port was electric. The Atlantic Ocean lay calm, with no signs of any impending storm. Over 1,500 passengers had boarded the ship, and thousands more gathered at the dock to witness the historic departure of what was being called the Unsinkable ship. But no one, not the passengers, not the crew, not even Captain Edward Smith, with 40 years of maritime experience, had any idea that this journey would end in one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. 6 critical mistakes made during the Titanic's design, construction, and operation sealed its fate. Mistakes that neither the ship's operator, White Star Line, nor the ship's manufacturers, Harland and Wolff, could foresee. If even one of these errors had been avoided, perhaps the Titanic would be remembered today as a marvel of engineering success, rather than as a tragic symbol of human error. Let's delve into these 6 fatal mistakes that doomed the Titanic. Mistake number 1. Excessive speed. At precisely 12 o'clock p.m. on April 10, 1912, the Titanic embarked on its journey from Southampton, England, to New York City, USA. From the very beginning, Captain Smith was under immense pressure from White Star Line's management to ensure the Titanic reached New York by April 17, just 7 days. This urgency forced Captain Smith to maintain a high speed throughout the voyage, even in areas with potential hazards like icebergs. Every ship has operating procedures, and speed limits are a critical part of them. However, due to the pressure of timely arrival, these procedures were overlooked. The Titanic sped through the icy waters of the North Atlantic, which ultimately contributed to its collision with the iceberg. Had the ship been traveling at a more cautious speed, the crew might have had more time to react and steer clear of danger. Mistake number 2. Ignored iceberg warnings. For 3 days, the Titanic steadily moved toward New York, making brief stops in France and Ireland. By the evening of April 14, 1912, visibility had decreased significantly due to thick fog and darkness. Several other ships ahead of the Titanic had already encountered icebergs and sent multiple warnings via wireless telegraph. Experts believe that at least 6 such warnings were sent to the Titanic, but these warnings were not taken seriously. Wireless operators, busy attending to personal messages from wealthy passengers, missed or dismissed the iceberg warnings as routine information. If the crew had acted on these warnings, they could have adjusted their route or speed to avoid disaster. This oversight became the second fatal mistake. Mistake number 3. Lack of binoculars. Lookouts on the Titanic's deck were responsible for spotting obstacles like icebergs, but shockingly, they did not have binoculars. Due to a mix-up during crew assignments, the ship's binoculars were locked away, and no one had access to them. Without binoculars, the lookouts had to rely solely on their eyes to spot icebergs, a near impossible task, especially on a foggy night. By the time they finally spotted the iceberg directly in the ship's path, it was too late. Had they been equipped with binoculars, the lookouts could have seen the iceberg from a greater distance, giving Captain Smith more time to change course or slow the ship. This critical error is counted as the Titanic's third fatal mistake. Mistake number 4. Weak rivets used in the hull. When the Titanic's hull struck the iceberg, the impact caused its steel plates to break apart. One might assume that the impact alone caused this damage, but closer analysis revealed another hidden flaw. The rivets used to join the steel plates together were made of cast iron instead of steel. Cast iron is more brittle and less resilient under high pressure. When the iceberg's force hit the hull, these rivets snapped like glass, causing the steel plates to separate. This allowed seawater to flood the ship's compartments at an uncontrollable rate. If stronger rivets had been used, the hull might have held together long enough for rescue ships to arrive, potentially saving hundreds of lives. Mistake number 5. Insufficient lifeboats. The Titanic had the capacity to carry 64 lifeboats, enough to evacuate all its passengers, but only 20 lifeboats were placed on board. Why? To maintain the ship's luxurious aesthetic. White Star Line's management believed that an abundance of lifeboats would clutter the ship's deck and ruin its beauty. When disaster struck, this decision proved to be catastrophic. With over 1,500 people on board, there were only enough lifeboats for around 1,100. Worse still, the lifeboats were not filled to capacity. Panic ensued, and crew members launched lifeboats half full, prioritizing wealthy first-class passengers over those in third class. As a result, many lifeboats left the Titanic with empty seats, while hundreds of people were left behind to face the icy Atlantic waters. Mistake number 6. Poor evacuation procedures. When it became clear that the Titanic was sinking, Captain Smith ordered passengers to board the lifeboats. But due to the ship's inadequate evacuation plan, confusion and chaos took over. Many passengers were reluctant to board lifeboats, believing that the unsinkable Titanic would remain afloat. The lack of training among crew members also meant that lifeboats were launched with far fewer people than they could hold. With every moment critical, crew members failed to prioritize filling lifeboats to capacity. Lifeboats with a capacity of 70 people left the Titanic with only 20 to 30 passengers on board. As a result, over 1,500 people were left on the sinking ship, most of whom perished in the frigid waters. Had the evacuation been better managed, far more people could have been saved. The sinking of the Titanic. On April 15, 1912, at 2:18 a.m., a short circuit cut off all the lights on the Titanic. Moments later, the ship's hull split in two. Within minutes, the Titanic disappeared beneath the freezing waters of the Atlantic Ocean, taking with it over 1,500 souls. The temperature of the water was a deadly 28 degrees, cold enough to kill a person within 30 minutes of exposure. The tragedy of the Titanic was not only a disaster of nature, but a catastrophe of human errors and arrogance. Its unsinkable reputation had blinded its creators and operators to the possibility of failure. Each of the 6 mistakes, excessive speed, ignored warnings, lack of binoculars, weak rivets, insufficient lifeboats, and poor evacuation, contributed to one of the deadliest maritime tragedies in history. The story of the Titanic is a timeless lesson in humility and the dangers of overconfidence. If any one of these 6 mistakes had been avoided, the Titanic's story might have been one of triumph instead of tragedy. Today, it serves as a haunting reminder that no ship, no matter how unsinkable it may seem, is truly invincible. Did you find this story intriguing? Like, share, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Stay tuned for our next gripping video.